Good morning. Yesterday we decided to stay in the hotel instead of camping. 3 smelly riders in a small hotel room, and that was an interesting experience. But we decided to do that to dry our gear and get a bit more comfort. We've had some nice breakfast in the hotel and we've packed up and we're pretty much ready to go and follow the Spanish jet. See you soon. Hello everyone, here's another update, not a very good one I'm afraid. I have a broken leg, which means that our trip had to end prematurely, so not ideal. I will have to come back and finish off that trip when I feel better, but for now I'm just waiting in the hotel near Barcelona to be flown back home. If you are interested how it happened, I'm gonna just give you an overview of what happened and all the logistical issues associated with having an accident abroad. So what's happened? You'd think that with all the gnarly trails that we've encountered, it would be one of those. But it's actually ironic that it wasn't. It was a very wide gravel road. There was nothing difficult about it. I was doing maybe 15-20 miles an hour. I've managed to somehow lock my rear wheel. I didn't control the slide very well, and I ended up underneath the bike, which I've been underneath the bike many times and nothing bad ever happened. But on this occasion, somehow my foot got twisted, whether it got jammed against the maybe stone on the road and the bike kind of pushed it forward or something like this. So at that time, Jairo started calling an ambulance and I started calling my insurance company. Ambulance took about 45 minutes to arrive, and in the meantime I was gathering all the documents for my insurance company, and they require quite a lot of input. They've requested a copy of my European health insurance card. They also wanted copies of witness statements. They also wanted a copy of the police report as well as ambulance report, because in Spain when you have an accident, even though nobody else was involved in it, it was just me because it was a motor accident, the police arrived with ambulance and they basically had to write up the report of what happened. So I had to get a copy of that report, and I also had to get a copy of the ambulance report, which on one side is okay, but if you were seriously injured, it's not really something that you want to be thinking about, right? You could probably get it afterwards, but if you're in a country where, let's say, some people don't speak English, that might be a bit challenging, and I personally don't speak Spanish, unfortunately, and so I couldn't communicate that well with people if I wanted to obtain those documents afterwards. Luckily, I was riding with a friend, Jairo, who's Spanish, so it was very helpful having someone who can actually fluently communicate in the local language. Apart from the documents I've already mentioned, the insurance company also required a copy of the hospital report, which was fine. I was able to obtain that, no problem. But they also needed me to populate a couple of PDFs. One was a case opening form, which is like a 6-page document. As you can imagine, doing that on your phone without a proper PDF editor wasn't ideal, and it took me a long time. It just the whole process seemed a bit cumbersome. Enough about the insurance documents though. Let's talk about what happened in the hospital. So I was there for about 4 hours, and I think I was waiting for 2 hours. Then I got an X-ray, and then an hour later, doctor came over, and she basically advised me that I've got a broken bone and the cast is required. She also prescribed me some medications. So with that stuff, the difference is, at least in what I experienced, in the UK, they tend to give you medication at the hospital. In here, they give you a prescription and you have to go and obtain it. So that was one thing. And they applied a cast to my leg, which was obviously expected, and they told me that I couldn't put any pressure on it, which was absolutely fine, but they didn't have any crouches. So when I've asked whether I could, use the toilet or something like this, they couldn't either give me any crouches. I couldn't purchase them at the hospital, which was a little disappointing. They eventually just put me on the wheelchair and they rolled me out of the hospital and left me waiting at the reception. So as you can imagine, this is not ideal because I couldn't just jump on one leg. So I had to contact my friend Jairo, and he has kindly picked up some crouches for me from a local orthopedic shop, which I was really lucky that it was still open, because otherwise I don't know what I would do. So I was at least able to move to some extent, which was good, and leave hospital on my own. Then I had to find a hotel, which, not a problem. Booking.com, I found a hotel nearby, and I was trying to get a taxi for it, and no taxi driver wanted to pick me up because the hotel was too close to the hospital, and it wasn't economical for them to do such a short run. Uber doesn't exist where I was, so again, my friend Jairo ended up calling, and eventually one of the taxi drivers agreed to do it, but for 14 euros to take me from the hospital into the hotel, because obviously it wouldn't be ideal for me to walk. I just got the crouches, so even though 600 meters doesn't sound like a lot, I didn't really want to chance it. So the overall experience, not ideal, but I guess it is what it is, and I eventually ended up at the local hotel and continued my conversations with the insurance company. Right, I had to leave my hotel, and the insurance company sent a taxi to pick me up and drop me off at the Barcelona airport. Airport kindly provided assistance as well, so I've got a wheelchair, and I had a gentleman pushing me around the airport and helping me with my luggage and so on. So from that point of view, everything was great, and airport is pretty empty. It's relatively quiet here today, so I've got practically the whole waiting area to myself. And I wanted to continue talking to you about what to do with the bike. Luckily, my friend Jairo, I had an accident about 2 hours away from his home, and he's got some friends that ride motorbikes. One of these friends, Thomas, he kindly offered to jump into a train and come over to the town near where I had my accident. So while I've been treated at the hospital, Thomas came over on the train and took my bike to his garage in Barcelona. So right now I don't have to worry about the bike. it's safely stored and I can keep it there for a few months without having to worry about, what am I gonna do with it. But if I didn't have that option, and I have to say here, Jairo or Thomas, if you're watching it, guys, I cannot even express how much I appreciate what you've done for me. So big thank you from me. You've been absolutely great with all the help and support you've provided. So yeah, thank you very much, fellow riders. But if I didn't have that option, then I would be in a bit of a pickle, what to do about the bike. Like if I leave it with my two friends, what they gonna do with it? They've got their own bikes to ride. Where they gonna put it? So again, one of those things that I haven't really thought through before coming onto this trip. In my case, I was lucky that I had kind people around me that were willing to help me, but if you were by yourself, that could be a really tricky situation. Like imagine that, you've crashed somewhere, you're by yourself, let's say ambulance has taken you, and what's happening with the bike? Maybe police would have towed it, I'm not sure, but it's worth looking into it in case of scenarios like this. Hi. As you can hopefully see, I'm currently in my study. I'm finishing off working on episode 3 of this very video, and I thought it would be a good time to give you a little bit of an update about everything. So let's start with how serious the accident was, because when I came back from Spain I was under the impression that I just had a broken bone, no biggie, right? But when I had it checked here in the UK, it turned out that apart from broken tibia, I also had a broken fibula and ankle syndesmosis, which basically my understanding is that the ligaments that hold the bones together around the ankle were torn, and that was a lot more serious than actual broken bones. So anyway, that required a surgery. I think I had a surgery within the week of coming over here, which was pretty good, but the surgery was pretty complex. It took 4 hours. I've got 3 cuts on my leg, and I've got 2 titanium plates and 12 screws as well. So I'm gonna have a lot of hardware that I'll have to carry with me probably for the rest of my life, unless it starts causing issues. I'm currently in the cast. Next week they're gonna take that off, take some x-rays and see whether I can start the rehabilitation process. So fingers crossed, within a month or 2 I should be able to start riding again. Let's talk about the bike transport now, because I found myself in a quite peculiar situation. So the bike was absolutely fine, it wasn't broken, it was completely rideable, so the breakdown cover wouldn't apply there. It wasn't a typical accident with all the parties involved, and plus I was off-road, so I didn't think it was the job for my motorcycle insurance either. And my travel insurance, although it covers motorbikes, it didn't really include transport of the motorbike after the accident. So long story short, I had to find a way of bringing the bike from Barcelona to West Yorkshire in the UK. And I found a number of companies through a website called Shipley. It's a website where you put your transport requirements and they contact their vendors and they basically put offers for that particular transport. So the offers range from 800 to 1,600 pounds. I found a company that cost just over 800 pounds, but they were answering my questions the way I like them. It sounded that they knew what they were talking about and they've done it many times before, so I knew the bike would be in good hands. 800 pounds, it's quite a lot of money, but I didn't really have a choice. It is what it is, and I'm glad that I've managed to bring the bike home. It took about 10 days for it to arrive, because obviously they were collecting other motorcycles from other areas and then distributing them in the UK. So again, I wasn't in any hurry, so I didn't mind that, and I was glad that the bike arrived here safely without any issues. I also wanted to share with you my reflections after this trip. So starting with insurance, I probably don't have to tell you now that it's really important to have a travel insurance, but it's also important to read their terms and conditions to understand what they cover and what they do not cover. For instance, first thing that I would check for is whether they cover motorcycle travel. A lot of travel insurances don't, they've got it excluded, so it's really important to have it checked. Secondly, what's the excess? Some insurance companies might have an excess of £200-300, and for those of you who don't understand the concept of excess, it's basically how much money do you have to pay out of your own pocket before you can claim it off the insurance. So let's say you had to spend £1,000 on a visit in hospital and insurance has an excess of £300, then that means that insurance will only pay you back £700. The first £300 you will have to pay for. Again, this might not be a biggie. I think the excess in my insurance was something like £50, which was absolutely fine per claim, but again, it's something that's worth checking. It's also worth checking whether your insurance covers accommodation and in what way. For instance, my insurance covered the accommodation on the like-for-like basis, which meant that I couldn't claim for any accommodation after the accident because I didn't have anything pre-booked. We were going from campsite to campsite and booking as we were going along, and because I couldn't demonstrate to my insurance that I had pre-booked accommodation, they couldn't pay for anything after the accident, which, you know, I probably should have read the terms and conditions properly prior to the trip, but you know, I didn't, so in the future I will pay a lot more attention to these things. Second thing that's worth paying attention to is your motor insurance. So first, whether it covers you when you're abroad. Secondly, how long it covers you for, because different insurance companies might cover you for a different amount of days. And third thing is what level of cover they provide, i.e. if you have a comprehensive insurance in the UK, do they also provide comprehensive motor insurance when you're abroad? Third thing worth paying attention to is the breakdown cover. So first, whether you have one, and if you have one, if it covers the countries that you're traveling to. Within the breakdown cover, they also offer different levels of coverage, so it's important to understand what coverage level do you have. For instance, a lot of basic breakdown covers will try to fix your bike quite close to where it has broken down, which is not always ideal. So in my UK breakdown cover, I've got it extended, so if they cannot fix the bike on site within a certain amount of time, I can ask them to tow that bike back home. Sometimes that might be my preference than leaving it with some garage that I do not know very well. Again, it's completely up to you, but what I'm trying to say here is worth diving into the details if you have a breakdown cover to ensure that you get the level of service that you want. The fourth thing worth considering is the difficulty of TED in Pyrenees versus your skill level and the bike that you're riding. Before I went on this trip, I've heard through the grapevine that TED in Pyrenees is really easy. Wide open gravel roads, and you can definitely do them on the heavy bike. Well, that's not quite my experience. Especially the French part of the TED in Pyrenees was a lot more technically challenging than the Spanish side of it. So, word of warning there, like if you just started riding, or if you're on a heavy bike, or if you're riding by yourself, TED in Pyrenees, especially the French part, it's probably not where you want to start. Again, if you're an experienced rider or you're riding in a bigger group and you've got someone to help you, definitely, you know, it can be a good fun. But there were some trails in there that once you've committed, there was nowhere to turn around and the only way was forward. And if you're by yourself and if you're on a heavy bike and it's really wet, then it's a very tricky situation. So all I'm saying here, think twice before you decide to go there, especially if you don't have much off-road experience. Right, this is it from me. If you lasted until now, well done. I don't think I could listen to myself talking for this long. Before I finish, I just wanted to say thank you. Jairo, Johannes, I'm really grateful for everything that you've done for me before and after the accident. To be frank, you are one of the kindest people that I have ever met. I don't have many friends, but I am really pleased to be able to call you my friends now, and this is just the beginning. I'm really looking forward to our future trips together. See you in the next video.